And now, everyone, it is time that we will go and conclude this episode off with the grand finale. And for this grand finale, we're going to go on to a major discussion. But first and foremost, though, I do want to go and bring up one particular movie, considering that it does relate to what we will be talking about. And that is what is currently the biggest movie in theaters, Lilo and Stitch, or specifically the Lilo and Stitch remake. Now, I know that in the last episode, I did talk about that film and how chaotic things have been. In fact, I would argue that even though the movie was a massive success, the reactions to it, I wouldn't say it's mixed. I would say it's just absolutely chaotic and insane, the way that people have been looking upon it, how they've been expressing their opinions, and how they feel so strongly about what is going on, rather it be with the movie itself or with the whole trend of the with live action remakes or some of the changes that the movie has done. It's just been pure madness. And let's be honest here, it's all exactly what Stitch would have wanted. Honestly, he would want his movie to both be a success and have everyone's reactions be a chaotic mess in itself. And I know that when it comes to my case in particular, when I did talk about it, yes, I still feel like even though there are some good criticisms towards the remake that I do agree upon, I do feel like the overall reaction, yes, it is a bit over-exaggerated, and I know I've gotten quite the backlash from people who are pissed off at the existence of this remake, and it did stir into a bit of a controversy, which is why I also put out this lengthy post on social media a few days back, just pretty much explaining myself, because I knew that with this whole thing with the Lilo and Stitch remake, it would put me into a similar position when I got massive backlash over my Wish review, just on the factor that I was a little bit more positive to it, and that I decided not to jump onto the hate train like most of the people on the internet. And with that said, though, I just want to go and give out a huge thanks to many of you who have supported me during that time. I mean, again, with controversies, it's not easy to go through, especially when you're in the center of it all. And yeah, this is a situation that shouldn't even be a controversy in the first place. But unfortunately, with the toxicity of the cartoon community, even something that is as small and minor as having a different opinion than what others say on the internet can be a subject of drama, unfortunately. So from there, again, I want to go and say thank you all so much for your support during these times. And thank you for having a moment to actually listen to me, even if what I say on my podcast or what I write on social media can be quite lengthy, but at least I can have a chance to explain myself. And I want to thank you for listening. But with that said, though, this is not about that in particular. What I want to talk about is something that is bigger than the Lilo and Stitch remake. In fact, it's actually regarding this particular article here. It's an opinion piece on Slashfilm that is called "The Fans Angry at the Live-Action Lilo and Stitch's Box Office Success Are Missing the Point" by BJ Colangelo. I think that's how you say his name. But I want to go and state right now, if you guys have the chance, please go and read this article. It is very insightful. It is very interesting. And it does give you a pretty good perspective, or a new perspective, on how things are in terms of kids' entertainment. And I know that's a pretty bold claim in general. But the first thing that it wants to go and bring up is the current tactics that animation fans have been doing so far. And that is to go out of their way and try to make this a failure, as desperately as they can. And what they do is that they go after audiences. It's a little bit like what I talked about last week. You know, the tactics of trying to discourage them in any way they can so that the movie somehow becomes a failure. You know, the whole mantra of vote with your wallet. And that's why you see people to say, like, don't go and watch this movie. It's very problematic. It's harmful towards Native Americans. Look at all these changes they did, and shove it onto people's faces, all the spoilers of what occurred in that movie. And this article would go and argue that that's a pretty bad idea. You do not win if you go after the audience. In fact, it's not the audience's fault that the movie has become a massive success. In fact, going down like near the bottom of this article, it even states here, right over, yeah, I might as well go and read like the whole final paragraph, in which it states that the villains in this Lilo and Stitch situation aren't the parents trying to bring joy to their children. I shouldn't go and, no, I shouldn't read that one over here. That's a little bit spoilers of what's going to be to come. But yeah, or you know what? Wait, where is it actually? Is it this one? Or I think, but, hold on a sec. Yeah, okay, no. It's right over here, Yeah, so parents are stuck between a rock and a hard place. Studios are not sending their best in terms of children's entertainment because they don't have to, and the standards for programming TV are becoming non-existent. So that's going to go and highlight what's going to be to come right over here. But or would it be more in the beginning? Because, oh, yes. Okay, no, this is what I wanted. Wow. Okay, sorry, folks. Okay, this is what I wanted to go and bring up. So it says here, of course, cultural enrichment beyond the multiplex matters, like museums, libraries, zoos, parks, etc. But weaponizing deprivation, as some folks are currently suggesting as a way to punish Disney into making more original films, is ethically bankrupt because it requires children to bear the consequences of capitalism's failures and studios' creatively conservative cowardice. Expecting parents to boycott the only family film available feels like a protest and more like a form of feels less like a protest and more like a form of punitive abstinence that punishes children for the failure of international structural tapings laid by the industry. Vote for your dollar only works when there's another option. So basically, that's the big thing that's one of the big things that the article wants to go and say. It's pretty much that going after the audience or trying to tell them what to do, it doesn't actually work because number one, you don't actually have control what other people could actually go and do. And number two, the people who go and watch it, they don't have any bad intentions. They want to have their own form of escapism. And not to mention, parents want to go and encourage kids to have a love of cinema as well. And if it and honestly, the real thing is that they don't really have much materials to work with in the first place. And if it would require watching the Lilo and Stitch remake in order to do so, then you know what? So be it. So that's why going after audiences, regardless of whatever strategies you want them to do, tell them to not go see it or try to ruin it for them. It is not gonna work whatsoever. So if it's not that, then what is the problem? Well, this is where the article would bring up some very interesting theories. And the biggest one of them all is the fact that there has not been much competition in the first place. And I think that is something that not many people have realized, but it's like kind of plainly obvious in front of our faces. When it comes to movies that have been released in theaters, there's very little that has actually come out in terms of the options for kids and families. Like they have, honestly, it feels like they've been diminishing more and more, where now it's kind of like a rare opportunity that a movie would be released that is aimed for younger audiences. And a great example of this is by looking at what we have gotten so far. Keep in mind, time flies fast, and we are almost at the halfway point of 2025. We've already gone through 5 months. And even though there have been a few smaller films that have been released from time to time, stuff like Sneaks or The King of Kings or whatever, but when it comes to the big movies that are aimed for kids and families, we have only gotten 4 so far. There was Dogman back in January. There was a Minecraft movie I'm doing it in the wrong order. Dogman in January, the Snow White remake in March, a Minecraft movie in April, and Lilo and Stitch in May. And so far, that's it. And when we do include June, then we can also include the How to Train Your Dragon remake and Elio. And that's it. And from there, you notice how far and few between that they actually are, which means that in terms of those movies released in theaters, there's a lot less competition. They don't necessarily have to worry about others coming in and might interfere with the profits that they could make at the box office. So that's why they're just going straight and just, do their own thing. Don't have to worry about the competition or whatever, because there's not really all that much in the first place. They know that the thing that they're offering, they could do whatever they want, and there's a chance that maybe it could go and turn into a profit. And yeah, nowadays, in 2025, so far, the big examples of what we have in terms of kids' entertainment for movies released in theaters are just a Minecraft movie and the Lilo and Stitch remake. And yeah, even though they have their respective audiences, we all know that they're not great examples of cinema whatsoever. They're not great examples of what should be a movie for kids and families. You could tell they're corporately made, and they do have their own problematic factors. But the point is, however, is that those are the examples that we have in 2025 because we don't have anything else. And then there is also the other factor in terms of television, where there used to be some good substance put into it, but then, unfortunately, things have very much changed. And in terms of that, let's just say you could thank the Trump administration. So if I could quickly go and jump onto, if I go back to the article right over here, there is one segment, this one part that I am confident, this is the one right over here, to which it states, the Children's Television Act of 1990 mandated that there would be a protection spot in broadcasting core programming around 30 minutes long that required media specifically designed to serve the educational and informational needs of children 16 years of age and under, including the child's intellectual, cognitive, and or social emotional needs. This call inspired the creation of shows like The Magic School Bus and Bill Nye the Science Guy. But even then, many broadcasting networks fought like hell against the requirement. The regulations were revamped in 1996, where the FCC ordered all commercial television stations must broadcast at least 3 hours of core educational programming per week, regularly scheduled between the hours of 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. So back in the 1990s and in the 2000s and even during the 2010s, there was actually a law that was mandated in the US that there needs to have some form of substance, that there needs to be this educational aspect to go and teach kids and sometimes teens as well, to go and, to provide them some lessons, to go and actually teach them something, to make their time watching on television actually be valued. And I mean, yeah, sure, there are some stuff prior that they could put out brain rot, but at least if they can make the quota of putting out that educational content, then that is what matters. So what happened to it though? Well, But in 2019, the FCC under the Trump administration decided to provide greater flexibility with that regulation to accommodate the popularity of streaming services, overlooking the fact that not everyone can afford multiple or even one streaming service with access to educational children's media. In the pre-streaming era, a cash-strapped family could ostensibly afford the one-time payment of a TV set and an antenna, and would subsequently receive over-the-air broadcasts for the major networks for free. Analog signals were officially cut in 2009, and the world transitioned to digital. And unfortunately, now that we are under a new Trump administration, things are getting worse, in which right over here, in which it states that the standards for programming on TV are becoming non-existent. So much so that when the FCC argued to roll back the restrictions of the Television Children's Act in 2019 for commercial broadcasters, they specifically identified PBS as a primary source of educational television to justify the erosion. So back then, when they when they decided to go and take down that act, they pretty much said that, well, at least we got PBS. Like, they're doing more than enough they're doing more than enough on everyone's part to go and provide educational television. If you need that kind of educational television, just go and watch PBS. But then this year, the Trump administration is butchering the budget for PBS, citing concerns of woke propaganda, which thankfully there has been a happy ending to that, especially like in terms of Sesame Street, or partially a happy ending. We know Sesame Street is being saved thanks to Netflix stepping in to go and help them out. So there is that factor as well. But the point is that even with television, the standards are pretty much gone. There used to be a law that required for television to have standards, but nowadays they decided to completely remove it because of streaming. And now with the Trump administration, it looks like those it looks like now there will be no standards anywhere. Like, even that educational aspect is pretty much gone. And honestly, I find it to be a very fascinating theory. And I personally want to go and add my 2 cents. I want to add into this theory that I feel like, honestly, there are 2 extra factors that I believe added on to this. Why is it that with kids' entertainment, like the quality of that has been suffering because of the lack of competition, at least in terms of movies? And I would say, number 1, it's because of streaming. And the big thing with streaming is that they provide extra platforms for movies to go and release their stuff, where now it is optional if they can go and release a movie onto the big screen. Because if the studio does not have that much faith if it'll do well at the box office, they can always go and choose to go onto streaming. Because especially with streaming, they can have they don't have to go and they don't have to go and handle many of the responsibilities when it comes to releasing a film by themselves. Because then, if they go and choose to put it onto streaming, they won't have to worry too much about most of the marketing. They don't have to worry about the performance at the box office. And they don't have to worry about how things are going to be with the later releases, like having it be released digitally or having some form of physical media. They could just sell it, they could just go and sell it to a streaming platform like Netflix or Amazon Prime, get a little bit over what it costs, okay, I have this movie, I made it for $80 million, I'll sell it for you for $100 million. And then, boom, that's it. The responsibility is done, and they don't have to learn any lesson afterwards. They could just give it to Netflix, and they're completely finished. And that is why nowadays, honestly, there have been fewer and fewer, like in terms of animation, there have been fewer and fewer animation studios that are regularly releasing movies in theaters. And so far, the only ones that I can think of that have actually consistently been doing so are Disney Animation, Pixar, DreamWorks, and Illumination. And that's a massive problem because those 4 only come from 2 different companies, from Disney and Universal. That's it. Everyone else, however, it kind of flip-flops. Like, you got Warner Brothers right now, who are in really bad condition. Like, they're pretty much at the point that because they've been facing failure after failure after failure with films like the Lego Movie 2, Space Jam: A New Legacy, and Tom and Jerry, that now they're undergoing a massive rebrand to see if they could try again releasing animated features on the big screen. And then you have Sony Pictures, who almost has given up on releasing movies in theaters. Like, so far, the only one that they have released in this decade is just Across the Spider-Verse, and the only two that we know that they'll have afterwards is the GOAT basketball movie and Beyond the Spider-Verse. That's it. Everything else that they have released so far this decade and what they have in store is just going to be released on Netflix. That's it. And then you also have Paramount, whom from time to time they are trying. If they have like this, if they have a big name franchise that has a new movie, they'll go and put it out on the big screen, stuff like Paw Patrol or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Transformers. But then they would also have some original stuff that they wouldn't even care, and they'll either just release their original movie on Paramount, or they would release whatever smaller budgeted SpongeBob movie onto Netflix. So it's like, Paramount is like, maybe. They're putting in a bit more effort than Sony, but still, they're not doing as much. So you could see that with streaming, like, that has given studios the options to just completely skip the big screen, and thus reducing the amount of competition, and from there, consequentially, reduces the need to take risks. And you've probably heard of this complaint again and again from other reviewers, when people would go and say, like, oh, honestly, this movie is boring. This movie plays it safe. They're not taking risks. Oh, it frustrates me how bland and generic it is. Why are they playing it so safe? And yes, there is a factor to it that a lot of it is because of money, because they're prioritizing profits. They just want to please the audience and try to be a good movie and stuff like that. Now, there is that factor. But the biggest reason why you don't see many movies nowadays actually take risks is actually because they don't need to. There's no reason to go and actually put on, to actually take risks, to go and try new things, to try to really be experimental and say, all right, let's try something different. Let's see if maybe this can work in order to attract audiences. The reason why they're not doing so is because they don't have to do so. They're basically following Illumination's template, where they don't have to care what critics have to say. They don't have to care about trying to make some amazing feature. They could just stick to what they know will most likely work, put it out in theaters, and they could turn in a massive profit. I mean, if it's been working for Illumination, where they have been playing it safe ever since, maybe since the beginning, and they have been making movies that could even surpass $1 billion at the box office, then it can pretty much be good for everyone else. And that's why you don't see, it's unfortunately rare to see movies actually take risks. In fact, the standards of what can be considered a risk has really gone down. It's gone very much down. Like, now, what is considered taking a risk is releasing an original animated movie on the big screen. Like, it's just that. That's it. Have it not be based on like a book, on a popular franchise, or anything like that. Just be its own original thing. And that's why right now, the next movie that's going to take a massive risk is going to be Elio. And beforehand, it would be some of the animated films of 2023 that would be considered the ones that took the biggest risks. Films like Elemental, Ruby Gillman, Wish, and Migration, all because those films were original movies. And say what you will, say what you will about these movies, but at least they did try. So that's why I wanted to go and really highlight that the lack of competition, and because of streaming, giving movies the option of not be released in theaters and just go straight to streaming, it makes it less likely to have competition and less likely to have the need to go and take risks. And then there's also the second thing I want to bring up, and that is the pandemic. Because whatever problems that the cinema had beforehand, it completely amplified. It pretty much gave us a glimpse of what happens when we no longer have movies in theaters, and immediately put studios in a rush decision to try to take action to find alternatives and make them question if movie theaters can be viable even after the pandemic. And that's why we've seen many companies decide to release their movies straight to digital or move their films onto streaming like Disney Plus and Netflix and stuff like that. And that's why, like, yeah, many people have talked about how it was quite a detriment when Disney released their films such as like the Pixar films like Soul, Luca, and Turning Red, make them into Disney Plus exclusives, and how, yeah, that did affect the box office of many of their films following afterwards, like with Encanto, Strange World, Elemental, Lightyear, Wish, and stuff like that. But then you also have some whom at the same time, they decided that they're going to stay, like with Sony Animation. When the pandemic happened, they moved their movies to Netflix, and they've so far been staying on Netflix for the most part. And this is not even to mention how it pretty much amplified some of the other factors, like how it really feels like it's only been IP movies that can be successful, and that's it. Where it's extremely rare that original movies can have a chance. That's why, this is exactly why Sinners has been getting great praise, because that film has been doing the impossible and has been very successful, even though that is a completely original movie right there. So when you factor in like all these elements, when you factor in the lack of competition, when you factor in streaming, when you factor in the aftermath of the pandemic, and then when you factor in the Trump administration and some of the changes that they have done in terms of standards on television, this is pretty much why nowadays, yeah, what is considered the standards of kids entertainment, it has gone significantly down. And that's why, like, nowadays, you cannot go and blame audiences for wanting to have their entertainment with what they can get. The reason why you see movies that are either mediocre or subpar at best, movies that are not considered great, such as a Minecraft movie or the Lilo and Stitch remake, why they have been getting massive success, and that so far they've either been close to getting $1 billion at the box office or about to get $1 billion at the box office. It's not because of the decision of audiences. It's because audiences did not have a choice. It's because of the lack of competition that has been going on. Now, I know that I've been talking a lot, but I just want to go and quickly have a restart in terms of the timer, because soon, there will be an ad that shall be coming up. So I'm going to come back and I'll go and put in my final thoughts, and then I'll go and ask you all, what do you think on the situation? So stay tuned. All right, welcome back. So overall, going back into the main point, or what I have talked about in the very beginning, the thing is with all this is that the problem with why is it that movies like a Minecraft movie and the Lilo and Stitch remake are very successful right now, it's not because of the audience, but it's mainly because of the current system in cinema. It's regarding the fact that right now, we are in an age of cinema where, at least for kids and entertainment, for kids and families, there's not really a whole lot of competition that's causing studios to have pressure to go and actually take risks with their movies. That a lot of them, yes, they do feel like they're just trying to cash in on like the fad or the popularity of the popular IP that they are based on, but they're just sticking to what ultimately works and don't have to make that change. And because of this lack of competition, because of what's been going on with the Trump administration, with streaming, and with all that kind of stuff, right now, it's an issue that it ends up being far greater than anything that people can do to control. And this is why, honestly, with all this, I understand if this is something that people don't necessarily want to hear. And that's mainly because it doesn't sound like something that they could really do in order to go and make a change. Like, there's not something that they can individually do in order to take action in order to help make things better. Like, in order to stop these live action remakes and see more original stuff and stuff like that. It's not as easy as trying to vote with your wallet or anything like that. And if you're trying to go after the audience in order to take down a movie, then again, it's not going to work. And you're far more likely to lose them and to detract them from your own cause than to actually get them to be on board with you in order to be against this. Because regardless of how you may feel of stuff like the Lilo and Stitch remake and a Minecraft movie, their success doesn't necessarily come from the quality of the picture itself, but it's mainly because with kids and families, they don't really have anything else. I mean, of course, you cannot bring your kid to freaking Sinners or anything like that. But the thing is that they can only work with what they can in order to have their own form of escapism and in order to go and educate their children on having a love for cinema. So that's really the big thing that I wanted to go and highlight with this particular story. I want to go and help educate people and to, basically spread the message that this article has brought up, to go and have them understand with what is actually going on. Like, why is it that we're having movies like a Minecraft movie and the Lilo and Stitch remake instead of something that's actually great? Like, why is it that it's very rare that we would have something like The Wild Robot or Inside Out 2, and we would just end up with, stuff like this that are more like corporately made crowd pleasers than actual good, some good movies out there. So I just want to go and lay that out. Now, with that said, I would like to go and pass this on to the chat wall. And I'd like to ask you all, what do you all think about this entire piece here? What do you all think about the current system of cinema that is very much, that's becoming less dependent on competition and taking risks? I've said a lot here, but I would like to know what you all think. All right. Now, let's see here. It's really sad that the standards are now being gone due to one incompetent and lazy leader. Without any educational values or lessons in preschool shows, how can we learn the ABCs to read or even learn about culture and history? Many of our childhood shows build us to become smart, kind, and creative. I understand with movies and shows, they want to be less risky, but still. At least in terms of television, there were laws that had standards, but now they're unfortunately gone. And a big part of it is trying to adapt to this new age of entertainment by bringing streaming in. Well, at least this is another one about TV. I can't believe the whole reason why entertainment for kids and families is declining in quality is because of stuff like the Trump administration damaging the Children's Television Act, the pandemic making streaming services popular thanks to theaters shutting down during that time, and caused an entire generation of children and families to have different options for entertainment. It just sucks that entertainment has been having issues like these because of the pandemic and the lack of competition. All right. This is definitely unfortunate. Look, I'm not a fan of live action remakes, but the audience should never be blamed for a movie's success. It really has to do with the fact with how Trump is trying to make children stupid. On top of how the pandemic really screwed over movie theaters, it really does paint a dark picture. Also, like you said, you did not deserve the backlash for your opinion on the Lilo and Stitch remake, and never let anyone dictate your opinions. Exactly. That's like one of the big things that I want to go and say in this. It's not the audience's fault if a movie you don't like somehow becomes massively successful. You're not going to win if you go after audience like trying to like gaslight them into not wanting to watch this movie, or going after people who openly express that they like the film. You're not going to win anyone over if you're going to go and do that. If you have a problem with the movie, just stick it to the movie. Don't be mad at the audiences. Don't be mad at the audience. Don't be mad at fans. Don't be mad at people who have different opinions than you. All right? Because again, the problem is far greater than the audience, and things won't go your way if you're going to go and try to say vote with your wallet. Even if, I'll even say, even if the Lilo and Stitch remake became a box office bomb, it would not solve the bigger problem whatsoever, and it would most likely not discourage Disney from making more live action remakes. I'm just saying. Let's see what else we got here. I can see why many families would see the Lilo and Stitch remake. I don't blame them whatsoever. But when these cartoon reviewers go after people that do enjoy the movie, then this is where I decided to stop watching animation reviewers, with the exception of you and Animated Antic. You are still cool. I really do hope families do check out Lilo later this month, since it is a new Pixar film that people do know. But we'll see how this film plays out, since some cartoon reviewers are trying to sabotage. Really? Are they already preparing to hate Elio? Like, honestly, that is a new low right there. Like, seriously, like, this is the one time that Disney is doing exactly what they're asking you, like doing an original film, and yet you're still gonna reject it. What? Are you planning on hating on Elio and then telling people go and watch the How to Train Your Dragon remake instead? Because that certainly ain't hypocritical at all. At least I am hoping that I'm wrong. I'm hoping that is not true. Seriously. Anyways, what other comments are there? Let's see. Indie or mainstream, there is that factor that people wanting to find happiness and a very good time whenever they can with each medium in these tumultuous times. They cannot afford the distress of bearing in mind controversies regarding voice actors, like with Glitch or Hoyoverse, ethics to make the works, like removal of drag in the Lilo and Stitch remake, or even like the change of what happened to Lilo at the end, and anything of the sorts. I'm cool with normal folks getting enjoyment out of what is available. Exactly. You gotta keep in mind, we're in a pretty depressing time, and people are just trying to find their way in order to have a piece of escapism, in order to have fun, in order to have a taste of happiness. And if they want that from the Lilo and Stitch movie, then that's fine. The thing is, if you're going after them, then you're basically trying to force them to remain miserable. Like, oh, you shouldn't like this because of this, or this. And I mean, I'm not saying that those arguments are not valid, but the thing is that you're not going to win anyone over if you want them to remain miserable and to try to make them always, to make them feel angry 24/7. If they need their escapism, even if it requires them to watch live action remakes, then let them have that. Let them have some time of happiness. Because again, the problem is not the audience. The problem is the current system with Hollywood in general. All right, I think I'm going to read one more comment and then we're going to cap this off here. All I could say is you're really on point. The value of entertainment has drained over the past decade, and even I noticed it throughout the beginning of the year has been lacking. Everything these days are hardly original and based on IP existing projects, including movies and TV. However, the purpose of it all is mainly to feel free from the troubles or even be inspired by what we see to share with others. Even with the lack of competition, take what you get and fly with it. All opinions matter.